Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to unlock the Globetrotter Hoverboard and test it with Billy. Instead of testing only one version, we'll be checking how it performs at different upgrade stages so everyone can get a better idea of what to expect. That way, whether your hoverboard is upgraded or not, you'll still be able to compare the results. So let's unlock the Globetrotter Hoverboard and get started. There we go, the Globetrotter Hoverboard is finally unlocked. At level 1, its ability lets you get coins, board charges, or a random power-up while riding the hoverboard, and the ability activates after riding 500 meters. Now I've upgraded it to level 8, where the required distance has been reduced to 380 meters, making the ability activate much sooner during a run. With that done, let's jump into the gameplay and see how well it performs with Billy. The run has officially started with Billy, and one thing to note is that my Billy is currently level 20. But from what I've heard, you don't actually need to max him out to get his full ability. I think around level 14 or level 15 is enough because the remaining levels mainly increase the score multiplier rather than improving his ability itself. So if your goal is just to get Billy's maximum ability, you may not need to upgrade him all the way to level 20. For this test, we'll play each run for around 6 to 8 minutes so we can get a fair idea of how the Globetrotter Hoverboard performs. That should give the ability enough time to activate multiple times during the gameplay. With that said, let's see how well this combination performs and how many coins, board charges, or random power-ups we can get during the run. One more thing is, we'll still be collecting all the secret stars during every run, but we won't spend much time talking about them because the main purpose of this video is to test the Globetrotter Hoverboard. If something interesting happens while collecting one, we'll definitely mention it, but otherwise we'll keep the focus on the hoverboard, Billy's abilities, and the overall gameplay. And while we were talking, we already collected our first secret star without any problems. For this first test, we're using the level 8 version of the hoverboard because I think that's where many players usually stop upgrading. From what I've seen in the comments and while playing with others, beginners and casual players often leave it around this level before saving their materials for something else. That's why I wanted to include this test first, instead of jumping straight to a much higher level that not everyone has unlocked yet. Players who spend more time grinding usually continue upgrading their hoverboards beyond this point, especially if they play high-score runs or long sessions regularly. That's why later in this video we'll also test a higher upgrade level and compare the results. It'll give us a much better idea of how much difference those extra upgrades actually make and whether they're worth investing your materials into or not. I've also noticed that many of you have been asking for more testing videos like this, both in the comments and on my community posts. That's one of the reasons I wanted to make this gameplay. Instead of only showing the maximum level, we'll test different upgrade stages so more players can compare the results with their own hoverboards. Hopefully, this makes it easier for you to decide whether upgrading the Globetrotter is worth it for your own gameplay. After this level 8 test, we'll move on to the next upgrade, which is level 11. I picked that level because I've noticed it's another upgrade point that many players stop at before deciding whether to max the hoverboard or save their materials. So don't skip ahead because we'll compare both levels and see if the extra upgrades actually make a noticeable difference during a real gameplay run. And if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps support the channel and lets me continue making more testing videos, gameplay, walkthroughs, and comparison videos like this. I know many of you enjoy seeing these detailed tests before upgrading your own hoverboards, so I'll keep making more of them in future updates as well. Also, I want to say sorry for the delay in uploading this gameplay. I originally wanted to upload it about 2 or 3 days ago, but my editing app wasn't working properly, so I couldn't finish editing the video on time. Everything is finally working again, and I started editing this video early in the morning as soon as I woke up so I could get it ready for all of you. I really appreciate your patience. I hope you enjoy this gameplay and find it useful before deciding whether to upgrade the Globetrotter Hoverboard. My goal is to make these tests as fair as possible so everyone, whether you're a beginner or an experienced player, can compare the results and decide what's best for your own account. With that said, let's continue the run and see how the rest of this level 8 test turns out. And with that, after collecting the Station Sensation Secret Star, we've now collected all 3 secret stars for this run. That part is completely finished, so now we can simply keep playing for the remaining few minutes and let the hoverboard ability activate as many times as possible. That should give us a much better idea of how it performs over a longer gameplay instead of judging it too early. I'm actually excited to see the final results because this hoverboard can reward you with coins, board charges, or a random power-up, and each one has a different purpose. Coins obviously help with coin farming, board charges are useful for longer high-score runs, and random power-ups can help in many different situations depending on what you receive. That's what makes this hoverboard different from most of the others. For the rest of this gameplay, we'll simply let everything play out naturally and see what kind of results we get by the end. Instead of making assumptions, we'll compare the final score, the total coins collected, and how often the ability activates. That should give us a much clearer picture of whether the level 8 Globetrotter is worth using before we move on to the level 11 test later in the video. And while we've been talking, we've already reached around 1.3 million score, and we've collected about 1,600 coins so far. I think that's a really solid checkpoint for this test because we're getting closer to the end of the gameplay. The run has been smooth, Billy has been performing well, and the Globetrotter Hoverboard has already activated multiple times throughout the run. Looking at the results so far, the hoverboard feels pretty consistent. Since it can reward coins, board charges, or random power-ups, every activation can be a little different, which makes the gameplay more interesting. Sometimes you'll get something that's more useful for high-score runs, and other times you'll get rewards that help with collecting coins or simply make the run a little easier. We'll continue playing for the remaining time without changing anything, so the results stay fair. Once the run is over, we'll look at the final score, total coins collected, and overall performance before moving on to the level 11 test. That way, we can compare both upgrade levels properly and see whether upgrading the hoverboard further is actually worth it, or if level 8 is already good enough for most players. And there we go, the run has come to an end. We finally crashed, and our final result for the level 8 Globetrotter test is 1.56 million score with 1,972 coins, which is almost 2,000 coins. Keep those numbers in mind because we'll be comparing them with the next upgrade level to see if there's any noticeable improvement. Now it's time for the next test. We're upgrading the Globetrotter Hoverboard from level 8 to level 11. After upgrading, the required distance for the ability to activate has been reduced to 320 meters, which means it should trigger more often during the run. Let's jump into the next gameplay and find out if those extra upgrades actually make a difference. The second test has officially started, and this time we're using the level 11 Globetrotter Hoverboard with Billy. Since the required riding distance is lower now, the ability should activate more often than it did at level 8. That means we should receive coins, board charges, or random power-ups more frequently. On paper, that sounds like a good improvement, but now it's time to see if it actually makes a noticeable difference during a real gameplay run. One thing I always prefer is testing everything in actual gameplay instead of only reading the upgrade description. Sometimes the numbers look impressive, but when you start playing, the difference isn't as big as you expected. Other times, even a small upgrade can completely change how often an ability activates. That's why I wanted to record this comparison instead of simply saying one level is better than the other without testing both properly. We'll be using almost the same conditions as the previous gameplay, so the comparison stays as fair as possible. The same character, the same hoverboard, the same game mode, and almost the same amount of playtime. That way, when we compare the final score and the total coins, we'll have a much clearer picture of whether the upgrade itself made the difference instead of some other factor affecting the results. Another thing I'm paying attention to is how often the hoverboard gives each reward. Sometimes it might feel like you're getting more coins, while in another run you could receive more board charges or random power-ups instead. That's why I don't want to judge the hoverboard after only 1 or 2 activations. The more times the ability activates, the easier it becomes to understand how useful it really is over a longer gameplay session. By the end of this test, we'll compare everything with the level 8 results. We'll look at the final score, total coins collected, how often the ability activated, and whether the lower riding distance actually helped in a meaningful way. If the improvement is only small, then some players might decide that level 8 is already enough. But if the difference is clear, then upgrading further could definitely be worth it. I'll also share my own thoughts after both tests are complete. Instead of telling you which level to upgrade immediately, I'd rather show you the gameplay first and then compare the results together. That way you can see the difference with your own eyes and decide whether spending more upgrade materials matches the way you like to play Subway Surfers City. Just like the first test, we'll keep this run around 7 to 8 minutes. I think that's the best balance because it gives the hoverboard enough time to activate several times without making the video feel too long. If every run lasted 15 or 20 minutes, the video would become much longer than necessary, and I don't want the pacing to slow down. I'd rather keep everything moving while still giving you enough information to make a fair comparison. And while we've been playing, we've already collected 2 secret stars, so there's only one more left to go. Once we collect the final one, we won't have to think about secret stars anymore for the rest of this run. Even though this video is mainly about testing the Globetrotter Hoverboard, collecting all 3 secret stars is still something you naturally want to do because it becomes part of the run. So let's grab the last one, complete that objective, and then focus entirely on the hoverboard test and the final results. So what do you think about the Globetrotter Hoverboard so far? After watching this gameplay, do you think it's worth unlocking, or do you still prefer using another hoverboard instead? I honestly think this hoverboard has a really unique design because it isn't limited to just one type of reward. Every activation can give you coins, board charges, or a random power-up, so every run feels a little different depending on what you receive. That variety is what makes it interesting. Have you unlocked the Globetrotter yet, or are you still making progress through the Season Pass? Since it's a completely free reward, I really think everyone should try to unlock it before the season ends. You don't need to spend any money to get it. All you have to do is keep completing your Season Pass missions, collect the required points, and you'll eventually unlock it. That's why I wouldn't recommend missing this opportunity while it's still available. One thing I really like is that this hoverboard can be useful in different situations instead of focusing on only one purpose. If it gives you coins, that helps with coin farming. If it gives you board charges, that's great for longer high-score runs because you can stay protected for a longer time. And if you receive a random power-up, it can still help you depending on what appears. Having all 3 rewards available on a single hoverboard is something we don't usually see very often. Another reason I wanted to make this comparison is because many players don't upgrade every hoverboard to the maximum level right away. Some stop at lower levels while others keep upgrading little by little. That's why we're testing different upgrade stages instead of only showing the highest level. This should make it much easier for everyone to compare the results with their own hoverboard and decide whether the next upgrade is really worth using their materials on. Even after using it for a while, I still think the Globetrotter has a lot of potential. Of course, we'll compare the final numbers once every test is complete, but my first impression has been positive so far. It feels fun to use, the ability activates regularly, and getting different rewards keeps the gameplay interesting instead of feeling repetitive. I'm looking forward to seeing if the higher upgrade levels make an even bigger difference by the end of the video. So if you haven't unlocked it yet, don't wait until the last minute. Try to complete as many Season Pass missions as you can before the season finishes. Since this hoverboard doesn't require any real money, it's definitely worth adding to your collection while you still have the chance. Once you've unlocked it, come back to this video, compare your own results with these tests, and let me know whether you think the Globetrotter is worth upgrading even further. And one small thing before we continue. If you notice me repeating a few words once in a while, I hope you don't mind. Since this is a comparison video, I want to explain every detail clearly so nobody misses any important information. I'd rather repeat a small point than leave something out that could make the results confusing. My goal is to make these tests easy for everyone to understand from beginning to end. So thank you for understanding and for supporting these testing videos. Your feedback helps me improve every upload, and I'll keep working on making the commentary smoother with each new video. Now let's continue this level 11 run, collect the rest of the data, and then move on to the final level 15 test to see which upgrade level performs the best overall. And there we go. The level 11 test has come to an end. We finally crashed, and our final results are 1.8 million score with 2,153 coins. Compared to the previous test, we can already see some improvement, but we'll compare all the numbers properly once every test is finished. For now, just remember these results because we'll use them in the final comparison. Now we're upgrading the Globetrotter Hoverboard from level 11 to level 15. At level 15, the required riding distance has been reduced even further to just 260 meters, which means the ability should activate much more frequently than before. Let's start the gameplay and see if this upgrade really makes a noticeable difference in score, coins, and overall performance. The next test has officially started, and this time we're using the level 15 Globetrotter Hoverboard with Billy. Since we've upgraded it again, the ability should activate even more frequently because the required riding distance is lower than before. On paper, that sounds like a really nice improvement, but now it's time to find out if it actually makes a noticeable difference during real gameplay rather than just looking good in the upgrade menu. From what I've seen, level 14 or level 15 is where many experienced players usually stop upgrading. I'm not talking about beginners, but players who grind events regularly, complete the season pass every month, and spend a lot of time playing the game. A lot of those players seem satisfied with this level, so I wanted to include it in this comparison and see whether it's already enough for most people without spending more upgrade materials. That doesn't mean this is the final comparison, though. We still have the level 20 test coming up after this gameplay, so make sure you stay until the end. That will show us the hoverboard at its absolute maximum level, and then we'll compare every upgrade we've tested today. I think that comparison will make it much easier to decide which level gives the best value depending on how often you play the game. One thing I don't want to do is tell everyone to upgrade straight to level 20 without showing the differences first. Not everyone has enough materials, and not everyone wants to spend everything on a single hoverboard. That's why I wanted to test multiple upgrade levels so you can see the results yourself and decide which level makes the most sense for your own account and your own style of playing. Just like the previous tests, we'll keep this run around 7 to 8 minutes so every gameplay stays as fair as possible. We'll collect all the secret stars, let the hoverboard ability activate naturally, and then compare the final score, total coins, and overall performance. After that, we'll move on to the level 20 test, which I'm probably the most excited to see because that's where the hoverboard reaches its full potential. By the end of this video, we'll have enough information to compare level 8, level 11, level 15, and level 20 side by side. Instead of guessing which upgrade is best, we'll have real gameplay results to look at. Hopefully this comparison helps you decide whether you should stop upgrading at an earlier level or continue all the way to the maximum level depending on what you're looking for. And one more thing I wanted to mention. This comparison video actually wasn't my own idea. The idea of testing the Globetrotter Hoverboard at multiple upgrade levels instead of only showing level 1 and level 20 came from one of my viewers. When I read that comment, I immediately thought it was a really smart suggestion because it would help a lot more players, especially those who don't have a fully upgraded hoverboard yet. So I don't want to take any credit for this idea because it honestly belongs to the viewer who suggested it. I believe if someone gives a great idea, they deserve the recognition for it. My job was simply to bring that idea into the game and test it properly. That's why I wanted to mention it here instead of pretending I came up with everything myself. Giving credit where it's deserved is always the right thing to do. If the person who suggested this comparison is watching right now, thank you so much for sharing the idea. It genuinely made this video much more useful than my original plan. If you're still here, please leave a comment below because I'd really like to know it was you. I'll definitely remember your suggestion, and I'm really happy I decided to turn it into a full comparison video for everyone to watch. This also shows how important your comments are to me. I don't just upload videos and ignore the comment section. I actually spend time reading your suggestions because sometimes you notice things that I never even thought about. A simple comment can completely change the direction of a future video, and this comparison is a perfect example of that happening. So if you ever have another interesting idea, don't hesitate to leave it in the comments. Whether it's another hoverboard comparison, a character test, a challenge, or any other gameplay experiment, I'll definitely read it. I can't promise I'll make every suggestion, but if it's something that can help the community or make a better video, there's a really good chance I'll give it a try in the future. I also want this channel to feel like something we're building together instead of just me uploading random gameplay. Your ideas, your feedback, and your suggestions help shape the content, and I think that's one of the best parts about having an active community. So thank you to everyone who shares their thoughts, and especially to the viewer who inspired this entire comparison. It really means a lot, and I truly appreciate the support. And if you're still watching the video, thank you so much for staying until this point. These comparison videos are much longer than my usual uploads, so I really appreciate everyone who's still here. To let me know you made it this far, comment board down below. It's just one simple word, but it'll help me see how many of you watched the video all the way through instead of skipping to the ending. Now I want to hear your opinion about the Globetrotter Hoverboard. Based on everything you've seen so far, do you think these upgrades are actually making a noticeable difference? Or do you feel the earlier levels were already good enough? We've now tested multiple upgrade levels, and every run has given us a little more information. That's why I wanted to make this comparison instead of only showing the maximum level. Personally, I think the upgrades are making a real difference. The ability feels like it's activating more often, which means you're getting more chances to receive coins, board charges, or random power-ups during the run. It might not seem like a huge difference during the first couple of minutes, but once the gameplay gets longer, those extra activations start adding up and become much more noticeable than they were at the lower levels. I also think this hoverboard becomes more valuable the longer your gameplay lasts. In shorter runs, you probably won't notice a huge improvement because the ability doesn't have enough time to activate many times. But if you're someone who enjoys longer gameplay, high-score runs, or grinding events for several minutes, I feel like the higher upgrade levels start showing their value much more clearly as the run continues. Of course, we still have one more upgrade level left before we finish this comparison. I don't want to decide too early because the level 20 test could completely change my opinion. Once every gameplay is finished, we'll compare all the results together, look at the score, coin count, and overall performance, and then decide which upgrade level gives the best value. That way, the final conclusion will be based on gameplay instead of just looking at the upgrade menu. We'll continue this run for a few seconds, and then we'll end this gameplay. Alright, there we go. We finally crashed. So it's time to record the results. With the level 15 Globetrotter, we finished with around 2.1 million score and collected approximately 2,532 coins. Keep those numbers in mind because we'll compare them with the final test. Now it's finally time for the last upgrade in this comparison. We're upgrading the Globetrotter Hoverboard from level 15 all the way to level 20, which is the maximum level available. After upgrading, the required riding distance has been reduced to just 200 meters, meaning the ability should activate more frequently than at any previous level we've tested today. This is the comparison I've been looking forward to the most because now we'll finally see the hoverboard at its absolute maximum potential. Once this gameplay is complete, we'll compare level 8, level 11, level 15, and level 20 side by side. We'll look at the score, the total coins, the overall performance, and whether upgrading all the way to the maximum level is actually worth the extra materials, or if stopping earlier gives almost the same value. Getting rewards every 200 meters is honestly crazy. The moment I saw that number, it immediately reminded me of the Possum hoverboard, because that one also activates every 200 meters by giving coin doublers. That hoverboard became one of my favorites because the ability activates so frequently, and now the Globetrotter is giving me that same feeling. Every couple of seconds you're expecting another reward, which keeps the gameplay much more exciting. Billy's ability keeps giving board charges, and the Globetrotter keeps activating because the required riding distance is so low. When those two abilities work together, it almost feels like everything keeps feeding into itself. You get another board charge, activate the hoverboard again, receive another reward, and the cycle keeps repeating. As long as you avoid crashing, the whole run starts feeling like one long chain of abilities working together. That's why I think this combination has so much potential for longer gameplay sessions. In shorter runs, you might not notice the difference immediately because the hoverboard doesn't have enough time to activate many times. But once you start playing for several minutes, those extra activations begin stacking up. The more time you survive, the more chances you get to receive useful rewards, and that can really change how the run feels. Another thing I like is that the rewards aren't always the same. Sometimes you'll receive coins, sometimes board charges, and other times you'll get a random power-up. That variety keeps every run feeling fresh because you never know exactly what the next activation will give you. Instead of repeating the same reward every time, there's always a little bit of excitement whenever the hoverboard ability activates again. Of course, getting rewards more often doesn't automatically mean it's the best hoverboard in the game. That's why we're doing this comparison instead of jumping to conclusions too early. A strong ability on paper doesn't always translate into better gameplay, so I want to judge it based on the actual results. We'll compare the score, the coin count, and the overall experience before deciding where the Globetrotter really belongs. I'm also curious to see how much of a difference this level 20 upgrade makes compared to the earlier levels. We already tested level 8, level 11, and level 15. And each upgrade reduced the riding distance a little more. Now we've reached the maximum level where the ability activates every 200 meters. This should be the hoverboard performing at its absolute best, so now there's nothing holding it back. Just to clarify something I mentioned earlier, when I said the abilities keep running in a loop, I was actually talking about the combination of Billy and Possum, not Billy and Globetrotter. I just wanted to clear that up so nobody gets confused. With Billy and Possum, the board charges and coin doublers keep coming so frequently that it almost feels like everything keeps chaining together as long as you don't crash. Now the question is whether Billy and Globetrotter can perform just as well, or maybe even better. On paper, getting rewards every 200 meters sounds really strong, but we still need to see how it performs during actual gameplay. That's why I'm not making any final conclusions yet. I want to compare the real results instead of deciding based only on the ability description. So let's continue this run and see what happens. By the end of this gameplay, we'll know if the Billy and Globetrotter combination can compete with Billy and Possum, or if it's still a little slower overall. That's what this comparison is for, so let's keep playing, collect the results, and see which combination performs better in a real gameplay test. Looking at the gameplay so far, I honestly feel like the level 15 Globetrotter is performing a little better than level 20. Even though this version activates every 200 meters, I haven't noticed a major improvement yet. Maybe it's just this particular run, but the overall pace feels slower. The score isn't pulling ahead the way I expected, and the coin count is also staying very close to what we achieved during the previous test. Of course, I don't want to judge the hoverboard too early because we're still in the middle of the gameplay. Sometimes the first few minutes don't tell the full story, especially with abilities that depend on random rewards. That's why I'm trying not to make any final conclusions yet. We'll let the run continue naturally and see if the results improve as we spend more time playing. Another thing we have to remember is that the rewards are completely random. Sometimes the hoverboard might give more board charges, while another run could give more coins or different random power-ups instead. Because of that, two runs with the exact same hoverboard can still feel completely different. That's why I think it's important not to judge everything based on only 1 or 2 minutes of gameplay. I also remember that during the level 15 gameplay, we seemed to receive more useful rewards, especially more board charges. Maybe that's one of the reasons why that run felt much smoother overall. In this gameplay, it feels like we're not getting the same kind of luck. Of course, that's only my first impression, and I could be completely wrong once we see the final numbers at the end of the run. When I compare both tests right now, the score and the coin count are almost neck and neck. I was expecting level 20 to pull ahead much more clearly because the ability activates every 200 meters, but so far that hasn't really happened. Maybe the difference is smaller than we expected, or maybe the better rewards simply haven't appeared yet. We'll know much more once the gameplay is finished. That's why I don't want to say that level 15 is better or that level 20 is better just yet. I think the fair thing to do is wait until the run is over, compare every result carefully, and then make a final decision. Once we have the score, the total coins, and everything written down, we'll know whether upgrading all the way to level 20 is actually worth it, or if level 15 already gives almost the same performance. So what do you think based on the gameplay so far? Do you think the level 20 Globetrotter is going to beat the level 15 results? Or do you think level 15 will still stay on top? Looking at the pace right now, what's your prediction? Do you think we'll finish with a higher score, collect more coins, or will the final results end up being almost the same? Before we reach the ending, I'd love to know what you're expecting from this comparison. Don't worry about my opinion for now. I want you to judge everything based on what you've seen in the gameplay instead of what I think. Sometimes our first impression ends up being completely different from the final results, and that's exactly what makes these comparison videos interesting. So before we reveal the numbers, leave your prediction in the comments, and let's see how close everyone gets once the run is finished. I also have another question for all of you. Up to which level do you usually upgrade your hoverboards and your characters? Do you stop at a certain level, or do you always try to max everything out? Let me know in the comments, because I'm really interested to see what upgrade levels most players actually use in their everyday gameplay. The reason I'm asking is because your answers will help me make better comparison videos in the future. If I notice that most of you stop upgrading at a specific level, I'll try to use that same level whenever I test a new character or hoverboard. That way the results will be much more useful for the majority of players instead of only comparing everything at the maximum level. I think that will make future videos much more practical for everyone. We'll continue for just a few more seconds, and then this final gameplay should come to an end. I think we've collected enough information to make a fair comparison. And there we go, we've finally crashed. For the level 20 Globetrotter test, we finished with around 2.1 million score and collected approximately 2,400 coins during the run. Looking at all the results we've collected today, I honestly didn't expect level 20 to finish behind the other upgrade levels. I thought upgrading it to the maximum would give the best performance, but based on this comparison, that just didn't happen. It also takes a lot of upgrade resources to go from level 15 to level 20, so personally, I don't think the extra investment is worth it from what we've seen in this test. Of course, this is only one comparison, and every run can be different because the hoverboard rewards are random. Maybe another gameplay could give different results, but based on today's test, I think stopping at level 14 or level 15 is the better choice instead of spending more resources to reach the maximum level. Now it's time for my final rankings. First place goes to level 15, second place goes to level 11, third place goes to level 8, and level 20 finishes in fourth place. Even at the maximum level, I just didn't notice enough improvement during this gameplay to rank it any higher. If you found this comparison helpful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future gameplay, hoverboard tests, character comparisons, and update videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.